Retro Mondays.
Hey, what's happening, gamers? Welcome back to another Retro Monday, where the goal of this show is to turn your Monday into a fun day. Well, October is finally upon us, so thus starts another Halloween theme for the rest of this month. To kick things off right, we are looking at Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance for the Game Boy Advance, which released in 2002. This is the second of the Vania games made for the Game Boy Advance. Harmony was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment Tokyo and once again continues the Metroidvania format that was introduced by Symphony of the Night back in 1997. It's been 50 years since Juste Belmonts had gathered Dracula's remains and destroyed them. The year is now 1748, and Maxim, the best friend of Juste Belmonts, arrives with some grave news upon returning home. He tells Simon's successor that their childhood friend Lydie has been kidnapped and taken to a strange castle. The two arrive at the unknown castle, even though Maxim has amnesia. How they managed to find the castle when he has amnesia, I will never know. Anyway, due to his wounds, he stays behind, and our hero heads in alone, unbeknownst to the young Belmont that he would repeat his grandfather's actions 50 years prior. Before we begin, everyone has their own way of pronouncing characters' names wrong or right. For the state of this review, and to be consistent with my speech impediment, I will call Juste or Juste Belmonts to plain old Juste Belmont, which sounds way cooler and short for justice. And with that out of the way, Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance is a side-scrolling non-linear action game, meaning you can go anywhere right from the start, though parts of the game aren't accessible until you have a certain item or ability. Harmony, unlike traditional Vania games, combines exploration with RPG elements, such as leveling up your character, equipping new items, and magical abilities you find along your journey. The whole point of the game is to locate your betrothed by collecting the Lord of Shadow's remains like in Simon's Quest. You also battle various bosses until facing off against Dracula himself once again. Man, this guy has more lives than a cat, doesn't he? Although this game differs from Simon's Grand Adventure because the whole game takes place inside the Demon Castle, like with Alucard, just two must venture through the castles A and B. Players control Juste Belmonts, the heir to the vampire killer. What makes this character unique is unlike many slayers before him, he has the ability to use magic. This comes thanks to his ancestor, Trevor Belmont's wife, Sypha. At the start of the game, the grandson of Simon has your classic Belmont moves from whipping, walking, and jumping to the use of sub-weapons. Though what makes him different is he can equip tomes to create powerful magic attacks to his sub-weapons. Juste also has one of Simon's trademark Super Castlevania moves, which is using the whip to defend against pretty much anything. Additional moves like the slide and double jump are unlocked after completing certain chapters. The top buttons allow our magical Belmont to dodge and to move very quickly. Save points are featured a lot more in this game than previous Vania games, and that's about the only difference. That being said, there are some things I find very wrong with this game, so you might want to grab some chips. This might be a while. After the release and gamer outcry over Circle of the Moon, Iga set out to make some much needed tweaks, focusing heavily on making this game less dark so we could actually see the game and offering better gameplay experience at the same time. While that's all fine and dandy, because of this the music takes a giant leap back. Now, it's not that the composer did a bad job, mind you, it's just the quality sounds like it came from the NES and not a 16-bit handheld. Actually, fans still consider Harmony as the weakest original soundtrack in the entire series. I've said this before and I will say it many times again, music can make or break a game's experience. In Harmony's case, it made the game very boring and less exciting. It also doesn't help this game's case that the music actually repeats most of the game. You heard right, folks, it repeats. Considering the scope and size of Drac's home, one would think it would have more music to accompany the different parts of the game, and no such luck here. Back when this game was being reviewed, the critics actually left out an important, vital piece of information, and that was that Konami rushed Iga to get this game on store shelves to replace Circle of the Moon as soon as possible. And because of this, that is the sole reason why the music quality is so bad. Still, for putting a game together in less than a year, that's pretty good. That being said, I have other issues with this game. We all know that the story in Castlevania games has never been its strong point, but Harmony takes another whack at the series and creates a very campy and confusing tale altogether. This will be a spoiler to those of you who haven't beaten it, so skip ahead to Okay, are they gone? Great! Let's do this thing. Maxim was jealous of Juste after the vampire killer was given to him. He then left to do some 2-year intensive training. Anyway, thinking he could control Dracula, he collects all his remains like Simon did before him, though he ends up failing and miserably. What ends up happening is he gets possessed in the process, but it's more complex than that, folks. It turns out that the reason Maxim doesn't remember anything is because when Dracula took a soul over, he copied it and made an evil incarnation of Maxim. Then he went ahead and kidnapped Lydie. At one point, Death tries to explain this to the mighty Belmonts, and even for our brave hero, he thinks the story is pretty odd, and that pretty much sums it up. My last complaints are just nitpicking, so don't have a cow, okay? These complaints are centered around the difficulty and non-linear Castlevania games altogether. Fans were very pleased with the challenge aspect of Circle of the Moon. However, for Harmony's case, that was cast aside, so now the bosses are pretty much easy prey for the superpowered Belmont, especially if one uses his magical attacks or summons. Backtracking gets pretty tedious in the game, and there are even parts where there are no enemies whatsoever. This made certain parts of the game very boring. Also, since I'm terrible with directions in the first place, I spent most of my time getting lost, and that wasn't really fun for me. Next up, the shops, which are pretty much worthless for buying anything other than healing items. Now, they do sell armor, but it's usually only 1 point higher than what you have and isn't worth the high cost anyway. I can understand if these armors were better than what you find, but they aren't. For some odd reason, Mr. Belmont can gather items from across time and decorate a room. This really serves no purpose, and I still don't know the point of it. I guess it's just to make fun of the fans or something? Like, look, here's something new. But that's enough belly aching from me. Moving on to the good stuff. Believe it or not, I actually like this game, though it's not on my list for top 10 Castlevania games or anything like that. Graphically, this game is a huge step up from Circle of the Moon. There was so much detail in this game, and it's pretty impressive. From the sunlight beaming into a gloomy room, the blue sky, and the many different locations you visit throughout Dracula's castle. The sheer amount of detail is very impressive. Likewise, the character and enemy sprites look really cool, and everything in this game has much better animations than the previous Castlevania games. Most of the foes you fight are similar to the ones you encountered in Symphony of the Night, but then again, the same character artists that worked on the PS1 hit also did the art direction for Harmony of Dissonance. Gameplay for this game is just fantastic and a step up from the first Game Boy Advance game. Now, double jumping, sliding are all great and all that jazz, but the best learned ability is the gravity jump, or whatever it's called. I love this move, especially when backtracking, because I can clear a lot of ground really quickly. Then it looks like I'm leaping tall buildings in a single bound like Superman or something. I guess I would be like Super Belmont. My only issue is this move should be available early in the game, and it takes a while to get it. I have to say that the level up system works really well in the Vania games, and it was nice to see it added in this one as well. It's a great feeling getting stronger and taking on tougher foes without a care in the world. Who's afraid of the Medusa heads? Not this guy, that's who. This is of course all thanks to Symphony of the Night, and I know what you're all thinking, why not do Symphony of the Night? Because I'm waiting till 2012. There's your answer. Anyway, equipping armor was great, but making your whip more powerful was even better. Throughout the game, there are tons of different whip tips and stones hidden throughout, but only a few are useful. I mainly use the platinum tip or the bullet tip for nostalgia purposes, because with this one, the whip would shoot a fireball when our hero's health was full. Another element I liked about the gameplay was the sub-weapons and combining magic books to them, which created a super powerful attack and also made Juste invincible for a little bit, which was awesome. Using the books was really simple, and all you had to do was select it in the pause menu. You can also activate it during the gameplay by pressing down plus L and R. Then you can just cycle through the different books by pressing up and one of the top buttons at the same time. Everybody has their favorite magical attack for this game, but my favorite is using the wind magic and combining it with the cross. This creates a pretty much unbreakable barrier of protection for our Belmont hero. Plus it lasts a very long time, and it doesn't take up that much magic. In fact, when you move from one screen to the next, the spell is still active, meaning you don't have to keep recasting it. That was sick. The summons were pretty cool too, but if you use them, victory is pretty much guaranteed, especially if you're over the level of 45. Saving is a very important factor in this game, but the quick save was a great addition. You keep all your stuff you collected and arrive back at the nearest save point upon death. So, I know what you're all thinking. Does this game have any lasting appeal? Kind of. There is 3 endings for the game which happen based on Juste's actions, such as letting your girlfriend die and killing off Maxim because you didn't find a ring to wear. Yeah, I know, it doesn't make any sense. However, you can replay the entire game as Maxim, but you can't use sub-weapons, just this weird boomerang thing. So if you wanted a challenging game, try playing as the lone swordsman. The final thing you can unlock is a boss rush mode, and even Simon Belmont himself, except he's 8-bit. Yes, 8-bit. As far as replaying the game just to play it without doing any of that other stuff, then no, this game isn't worth it. This is because the game gets boring really fast, and the sole reason for this is the music. I hate to say it, but it's so true. Harmony of Dissonance is loved or hated by core Castlevania fans like me. There is no middle ground with this game at all. I wish there could be a middle ground because this game does a lot of things right and only did a few things wrong. But as a musician, this game is just too painful to listen to. It's a shame too because they're really great compositions, and I feel really bad that IGA had to lower the music quality to give this game better graphics and an overall feel. It would have been nice if technology would have been up to par to be able to do both, because this could have ended up being one of the best portable Castlevania games before Aria and Portrait of Ruin. So let this be a good example for future generations, gamers, and developers. Good graphics don't make a game better. You have to have music as well. Because without the music, the game is missing its soul and doesn't stand the test of time. The only way I would suggest buying this game is for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you're going to play it muted, because that's pretty much how I played it and actually made the game a lot better. Number 2, as part of the Castlevania 2 pack for the Game Boy Advance, which released in 2006 and was packaged with Aria of Sorrow, which is included and is a great game. I really need to take a look at that one of these days. I really feel bad, gamers. This game had so much potential, but it just missed the mark. Well, thus wraps up another Retro Mondays. Join me next time for Star Wars Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. This game is revered as a pioneer in 3D gaming, but it's also deeply hated. What side of the fence do I stand on this issue? Well, you're gonna have to watch the next episode to find out now, won't you? Just a quick reminder, if you like what you saw, please subscribe to support this show. I also have a Facebook, Twitter, and album on iTunes if you want to check those out as well. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch another Retro Mondays, and until we meet again, gamers, God bless and happy gaming.